For this Ready in 7, I don't have my Hoyts, but I got my PSEs, which were well used and a perfect example right now for what I want you to do. You are in charge of overall look on your strings and cables, on your arrow rest cord, anything that is wearable, you need to be inspecting right now, because if you need any of this changed, you need to do it before we've done all this shooting, before we've checked site marks and everything else that's getting ready to come up, and you need to do it before your shops are overwhelmed and can't help you out. This is a perfect example right here of a string that needs to be replaced. You can see this thing is chewed up, and honestly, last year I put a couple little spots here where I did some serving saver, put those over, but everything from being on horseback or backpack or whatever, these things are just starting to get chewed up. This wouldn't make it another season, and if I had to use this thing, I would be getting strings and cables replaced right now. The next thing that you really got to look for is you got to look at that center serving. If you've developed a really bad flat spot right there in the center serving from your arrow being too tight and your peeps may be starting to twist, what's going to happen is if you go to a shop and they put a turn in this thing to get your peep orientated the right way, now that flat spot is going to be like a rudder on a boat, turning that arrow and causing some really poor things to happen downrange. So I need to make sure you're checking that. Check your cams, make sure you don't have any dings, any burrs, anywhere where you might see some strands being cut. This thing's a perfect example. It has been through the ringer, but you can see there's no dings or chunks. Honestly, this limb last year got hit, and I had a splinter coming up off that limb. I taped it. This would all be stuff that I would have addressed for this year, and it's stuff that you need to address. Now keep in mind, we have free shipping right now on all orders, shameless plug, but that's because on this bow right here, this is actually one I know I've got to replace a center serving, knocking points, and a D loop for my buddy. And honestly, being able to get some serving thread or a serving jig, you can watch all this stuff. I've got how-tos online. If you get one of these in there, you can scan and do a how-to on serving as well. So this, if you can't get to a shop, this is something that you need to do. I'm going to show you here. This is a perfect example. You see right here, when this D-loop was on here, I could see at the bottom of the D-loop, I could see that green showing right there underneath the serving. And so what that's telling me is this serving has slipped over time. And that's because you're constantly trying to pull this string from above the halfway point, so it wants to slide up. And when this gets hot in the summertime, and when you're starting to shoot it a lot and those strings and cables are breaking in, with factory strings and cables, this is very, very common. So I want you to look at your D loop and look underneath. If you can see that right there starting to happen, this needs to come off. You need to get it to a dealer, or you need to address it yourself. Super critical. This is going to cause you to hit low. And in this case, my buddy said, lately I've been shooting, I was a little bit low last week, now I'm even lower again. I'm not sure why I keep moving down. And honestly, I'm like, I bet you if I look at your serving, you're going to have that slippage, and right there it is. See, in a normal situation, I can pull, look at that, I can pull that down. Now the gapping's above, and you can imagine if that got pulled from your top knocking point, now impact is totally going to change, totally going to change. So I'm going to remove his D-loop, his center serving, and I'm going to have to redo all that. But once I do, he's good for the year, and now's the time to do it. Shops aren't overwhelmed yet. They're damn close, and honestly, we don't want to go through the rest of the things that I'm going to have you practicing for these next few weeks. You don't want to be doing that, and then at the end, that thing finally slips more or lets go, and you end up having to redo all of this stuff that we've been working on. So right now's the time. Honestly, if your strings and cables are dried out and they're just starting to fuzz a little bit, it's a perfect time for a string treatment. If you haven't done this in a while, now's the time to treat your string, because you're going to prevent moisture from soaking into that like a sponge and ended up building extra weight and slowing down that arrow. It's likely we're going to encounter some rain. We're hunting. So making sure that your string is treated so that water isn't absorbing into those fibers is going to be important. This is a couple bucks, and it is the best string treatment you can get, period. It's super easy. You literally get some of this, wipe it on your string, and I've got a little leather patch that comes inside there, and you use the leather to really work it into that string and melt it in. Honestly, anything that's wearable, another area for you to check if you have a roller guard or roller slide, remove these off and take a look right here. A lot of times you're going to see some wear right there, but the question is there a strand cut? Is it unraveling? Because if it is, this would have been problematic during season. A lot of people too, in this area, depending on the type of bow you have or cam system, right in here, if you have major separation or if you're seeing a strand hang off there, you want to freaking get rid of that cable and get that replaced. If it's just a serving separation, a shop can put that on a machine and fix it for you. Not a problem. Also, make sure that you don't have any dings on your cam or any sharp edges on your cam. Just kind of go all the way around this with your finger and make sure that the servings are intact and there's no jagged edges. Sometimes you can set this thing down and bang it on a rock and not even know it's there. Honestly, even inspecting your limbs. I had a video on doing a bow overhaul. I would recommend you watch that video on the bow overhaul if you have any questions or if you're an at-home mechanic, because these are things that you can do. They're things that are super critical prior to season. Get it done, get it sighted back in, and then tomorrow we're going to be on the range again for the next homework assignment.